Let's go ahead and move into the picks and bans for game number 2. Time for an adjustment. Before we hard swap over, there is one play I want to ask you for your thoughts on in particular, Taco, where they're by the Pyromancer and Weekend gets the kill, and it looks like he stops to taunt on the back end of it, and then he ends up getting blown up. I think he would have died there either way, but I mean, did it stand out to you in any way, Taco?
Not really. It happens in competitive play, and I think Weekend only goes for that move to begin with because he's trying to play the mental game here. It's all part of competitive, and
they're right across from each other out in those player booths. Man.
He had no idea what was about to hit him, but turns out Obey's the one getting the last laugh, at least for game 1.
At least for game 1. Well, now we're into game 2. Baron already banned away. And J-Mac, you were the one that kind of pointed this out last time. It's a bit surprising that we're seeing it. Baron hasn't been valued a ton, but it's something Xaliea will play.
Baron's had a pretty big impact in the games that he has been picked up, but banning it this early, it's just a shot at Xaliea more than anything else. Baron, yes, a very strong, flexible god here, but Xaliea himself, I think this is mostly a target ban towards him.
And Taco, based on what we saw in game 1, are there any adjustments that you want to see? Because I think that we did see some good play from Kiki. Clout never got a chance to do much. Do you like the Bakasura there from Wiki? Is that something you want him to go back to? Geno very comfortable in the op wash? Or where do you want to see them trying to make some adjustments?
I definitely understood the mindset behind Bakasura. That was to just go on PrettyPriMe or Ataraxia, kill them, and then win the team fight because they didn't have their carries. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get anywhere near PrettyPriMe after right around the 15, 17 minute mark, I think, is where things really became complicated because Twig was just hassling him nonstop. He was all over that Bakasura. It was like his sole purpose in that game was to play Baka Patrol.
It was between him and the Dike, I feel like, because there were several times where he went on a merry chase following Xaliea all around the map and just couldn't quite get the impact they were looking for. So we'll see if that's what LG want to go back to. They will be the first pick selection this time, J-Mac, so they have a chance to try and get a priority pick. With Odin taken off the board, Baron, Terra, and Mercury. Freya certainly still out there. Pele still out there. There's a lot of good stuff to go to.
And Erlang, Shen available as well.
Oh, yeah.
Both of these junglers love this god. I mean, my prediction is one team's going to get one, the other one's going to get the other two into that one. But Athena is one of the first gods looked at here, and this is probably one of Bobby's better gods.
If Athena is locked in here, that would lead me to believe that Luminosity are just going to look for a heavy dive composition here for Obey, because the one thing that they were trying to accomplish in game 1 was just kill PrettyPriMe, and they were never actually able to do that with an Athena and possibly even gods like Robin or the Erlangs. You have a little bit more dive capabilities to look to punish that mid laner early on to prevent him from ever becoming a problem on that Zeus, because Obey have the freedom here to run it back if they so desire. Odin has been taken off the board here by Luminosity, and it is a little bit of a small mind game, but not one that I think is going to pose heavy detriments towards Obey.
Yeah, you won't see me complaining about Freya, Erlang, Shen, and I think that is the route that Obey are going to go here. At the very least, they'll grab the Freya. And remember, in last game, not as if Ataraxia did not play well, his number just was not called, really. You know, they didn't need him because Twig and Prime are having such a good game. So even if they are able to answer the Erlang or answer whatever they pick for Prime, you have this extra element that you have to be concerned with in this Freya.
You just can't ignore the Freya at any point of the game. When it gets to late game, if the call is needed here, and this still could be going over to Prime. We can't just write this off saying it's going to Ataraxia because it did game 1. This could very well be for Prime depending on what Luminosity pick up here, and they could even wait on their mid pick until the second phase.
I don't think Clout wants to play Jing Wei again. I think he wants a hunter that he can actually force Ataraxia to leave his tower line with.
Right.
And you're not going to find that typically with the Jing Wei. And so if Obey are running things in mid and jungle, then possibly looking to shift the attention towards the dual lane could be the right step to go. If he does end up going for the Jing Wei, it's simply because he wants the survivability. It has to be against that Freya Erlang.
And you talked about it before. The agility is very good into this matchup to get out of the Vanish, the knock-up from the Erlang as well. But you're right. When you look at these two teams on paper, let's say that we did remove Ataraxia and Clout from the equation, Obey look much stronger in that 4v4, I think. Clout really is the one that more often than not is getting it done for LG. So if they put themselves in a spot where Ataraxia is able to sort of neutralize Clout, I think they're doing themselves a disservice.
And that's kind of the intention, I feel, from Obey. Like we saw in first game 1, they're trying to run it back. Freya, Erlang, and Zeus. This is the exact same first 3 picks that Obey opted for in the start of the banning phase, and I am a little bit concerned again here for Luminosity because it's such a healthy spread of damage.
And again, it's another Nemesis ban. We saw the Ymir and Nike picked up last time for Obey, and Ymir struggles very heavily against Nike, so banning this one away at this point, unless LG bans it, I don't see really much of a reason for Obey to change it up.
No, absolutely not. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Though I do kind of like the Vulcan into this Erlang Shen. He is one of those guys that kind of likes to, like, if you're jumping on top of him, he can kind of handle a little bit backfire, drop the meatball at his feet, the turret there as well, or ult at his feet. So he's got some options to try and get away, but really, Taco, do any options feel good when an Erlang Shen is barreling down at you? It's hard to say.
After watching what Twig was able to accomplish in Game 1, I wouldn't feel too great about things right now, Finch, if I'm in Luminosity's position here. And more importantly, they're trying to figure out which band they want to go for in that final slot here. Taking away the Sylvanas,
yeah.
That's a smart ban, I think, because Sylvanas would just make things incredibly safe for the Freya in duo lane.
Right,
this could possibly Jingwei Athena a little bit more aggressive than Jingwei Terra.
And not only that, Sylvanas is great for keeping people inside that Zeus ultimate, which is the big one. If you can lock somebody down for an extra 2 ticks of the Zeus ultimate, he can detonate, get a couple more charges, and then continue the extra damage that goes through onto that one. The option goes back over to Obey. Do you think there's going to be a specific target ban onto this one, Taco?
I could see them banning away a jungler. I don't think that Bakasura may as well, just in case, because that's what Weekend tried to lean towards last time. And he did have some mild success at the very start of that match with the Baka. It just wasn't able to continue throughout the Game 1 simply because Luminosity started falling apart at the seams with their composition execution.
Ares banned away as well. This was banned in Game 1. I was a little bit surprised when we saw that one too, but worried about some of these aggressive Guardians going over towards Obey. But I like what you highlighted with that Sylvanas. You don't want to allow any more free lane pressure over to this Freya, right? She's already such a monster and trying to deal with the Sylvanas that makes it can definitely be tough. So I do kind of like these bans from LG, right? Get the Odin and the Baron out of there, Sylvanas, Ares, try and make it a little bit easier for the Jingwei and for the Vulcan.
I think another high-impact jungle this time from Luminosity, something that can get the job done much faster. Yes, Bakasura has a lot of early-game damage with that true damage onto his Butcher Blades, but Pele is still open here.
Yes.
Does Weekend go for Pele here?
Weekend could go for Pele here, but I'd imagine that Ymir could become incredibly annoying. Plus, Pele, she has to all-in dive the Zeus right away. If she is not successful on that first initiation, then the turn and burn aspects are one more time going to come into effect here. And Obey, I'm almost curious if this might end up being a completely true run back.
Yeah.
If Xaliea goes with the Nike in the last pick, and I would not fault Obey in the slightest, because as this draws closer and closer throughout the winner's bracket, you have to keep in mind you don't want to reveal as much as you can avoid.
And remember, the winner of this is going to be going on to play the winner of the Insignum versus Mouse set as well. So you're right. You show one composition that works. Well, if they don't beat it, show it again, right? And then you have given very little information over to the winner of that set. Again, the loser of this one, which now is on the table, if LG drop this game, they'd be put down to the loser bracket. They'd be going up against Armada. So they want to do everything they can to not have a difficult matchup and try and stay up here in the upper bracket as Fenrir comes through, J-Mac. We've been seeing a lot of this, maybe even in the support role. I imagine this is jungle with the Athena already here, but Fenrir has kind of risen.
I'm not convinced that this is Athena support in this case here. I'm thinking that this is Bobby on inbound going for that Fenrir and Arachne. Arachne's got to be going over to Kiki. I think Kiki's one of the only people on this team that I would give this Arachne over to. I think this is going to be Athena jungle, Fenrir support.
I'm agreeing with the Fenrir support, but I feel like this could be Athena solo Arachne in the jungle. Weekend's got just as much of an Arachne, I think, as Kiki, and Arachne a little bit too risky in that solo lane spot, but Xaliea is still trying to go for a lane bully, whether it's the Arachne or the Athena. I think either of those guys would probably end up struggling against some of the pressure Cuckoo can provide.
I think that's exactly the adjustment that Xaliea was trying to make over there in the solo lane. Whoever they put over, he's not going to try and give them a free early game this time and wants to try and be a bit of a bully, but Obey largely running back the same draft that we saw from Game 1. The Erlang Shen, the Zeus, the Ymir, the Freya, all will be there yet again. This time it's up to LG to try and make some adjustments. But Taco, what is it about this Fenrir, wherever he ends up being, that's made him more popular all of a sudden? I mean, is it just the Unchained, the Ragnarok? What is it?
I think it's the Unchained reset of having the cooldown, which is really convenient, especially when you're trying to just go in super aggressive against the enemy duo lane. A god like Freya, you don't want to permit her to have that safe lane clear that we were just discussing. The more passive the duo lane is, the worse it is for Luminosity. They need that pressure from the start. Early rotations as well from the Fenrir can be very viable, because if he's able to collapse on top of PrettyPriMe, force out that lightning storm a little bit preemptively, that could spell trouble for Obey.
We just saw this exact same composition essentially from Obey win it in game 1. The only difference was the Chulainn. Can they do it again, or have LG made the appropriate adjustments to try and get this game 2 win? Let's find out. Get it over to F.Dot and Aggro for the cast.
Thanks a lot, John. One more time, Tom and Ryan on the call. Doug, of course, on the 1s and 2s behind the camera. Obey Alliance, they have game number 1 under their belt here. It will be weakened in the jungle on the Arachne. And, you know, we were talking about it. I am glad that JMac did bring up the possibility of the Arachne Athena switch. That is something that this Luminosity gaming team can play, but I think this is more recent.
Inbound jumping in with nothing there. Freeze right onto Kiki, but Inbound's in the middle of everybody. But he might not be the first one out. Ataraxia does get him, but Prime's right after.
Kiki's in trouble. CaptainTwig takes him down. Weaken takes care of Ataraxia. What's the classic phrase? Don't fight the bug. Weaken gets the kill. It's 2 for 2. So is this just the understanding? Is this the LG Obey sort of like Haka? Are we just agreeing to fight in the middle, group up as 5, fight it out, and then start the game? Because I'm down.
Maybe, but I mean, that was a ton of damage. And look at the team fight recap. It was right down the middle, basically, in terms of damage. But it's Obey who ends up way ahead in gold, because they're the ones who get the first blood. But it was close, man. If Inbound just has a little bit more patience and just waits a little bit longer to jump in, he just gets in that fray a second and a half too early, and that means that Obey has a second and a half to get a lot of damage onto him. He still almost survived long enough.
Again, rookie growing pains. I can't help but wonder what would happen if Inbound was picked up, even in the summertime.
Yep.
Right? One extra split is kind of all I think he would need to be a little cleaner, but this is the team they have, and the growing pains are certainly there. I like the plan from LG. Arachne, she's got the stuff at level 1. You want to fight with her. At the same time, Ymir's a beast at level 1 as well. CaptainTwig's a beast at whatever level he's at, taking down Gino in the mid lane easily. That's kill number 3.
Twig doesn't even have blink. Twig has beads, so Gino must have just let him walk close enough to get into pin range and use the purification beads. It still wasn't enough, and we were talking about the rookie struggles for Inbound, but Gino seems to be right behind him in that regard. Gino has impressed on this Vulcan quite a bit so far, at least in their set earlier this tournament, so I do think that Gino could still make a big impact this game, but it's those little, you really can't give players like CaptainTwig an inch. He is one of the best in the world at taking small leads and really getting a lot out of it. And to give up an early kill to him, he's already 2-0 and 1 at just 2 minutes into the game, isn't a good idea.
Not at all. Certainly not the case here. Weaken playing on this Arachne. Now, if you're familiar with Weaken streams, you know that this is one of his favorite characters. He's been all about it. But what can we say on the real SPL level? Is there a reason we don't see this character much? Is Weaken good enough to make this a specialist character? The floor is yours. Talk to me about Weaken and Arachne.
Weaken proved during the spring split that this character can be SPL viable. He won a lot of games during the spring split, really off the back of this character. And Weaken doesn't play it like a lot of other players seem to play this god. You think of Arachne, and I think of stone cutting sword, and maybe a chin size here and there. You know,
an executioner.
Auto attack build. Well, no, I'm thinking I'm Weaken at this point, so I'm ignoring my penetration tab. But Weaken seems to really like the penetration. In fact, he found it right away. He's got Mace 1. Unless he's selling that, at some point, he will have physical pen this game. So that's already $10 if you're keeping track. This is going to be a really fun game to see if Weaken can make it work with the pen build, because that's what he likes to do on this character. You'll see a Crusher most likely. You might even see a Jotuns. He seems to really like that big instant burst. You'll see him use that auto attack cancel, you blink in, auto attack, 1 auto attack right away. And that is a ton of burst damage. And then he's going to need to use that ultimate to get out of danger. And that's where his use of the ultimate in this game is going to make or break this pick, because it's so bad against Ymir when you don't have your ultimate, because he'll just kill you with that wall. But if you do have the ultimate, Nightcrawler gets up and over that. So we'll see if he can make it work.
What I do like about this Arachne pick is I think it goes toe-to-toe with Erlang Shen. I think you can just have a basic attack fight with Dogman and still come out on top. So I think this is a nice look for Weekend. Inbound finally hits a stun, but he gets stunned on the return. Ataraxia getting hit by Clout to dash forward. Ataraxia goes to the sky. Okay, game number 1, it didn't really come out. Shouts to Clout, taunting over here. Because PrettyPriMe did the heavy lifting and then some. Ataraxia didn't do anything, but he didn't have to, and that's all well and good. My concern is, what if he had to have done something? I'm not sure he could have. And here in game number 2, the ultimate, I saw the same stuff before. I don't like Ataraxia Freya ulting.
No, that wasn't very good. Look, when you're giving all your red buff XP and gold and the buff itself to your mid laner, you're not going to have an easy time making a huge impact. But Andy fell a little bit behind in a matchup where a Hunter can push it pretty easily.
Right.
In a character like Jing, sure. That decision-making was not good, and I do think this Imperial Helmet start for Ataraxia is a good idea because Inbound is here to really make Ataraxia's life a living hell and to really annoy CaptainTwig with this Fenrir. So I think Ataraxia's got the right idea by going conservative. Basically, when you've got Erlang, Shen, and Zeus in your mid jungle, and you're on Obey Alliance, where you have CaptainTwig and PrettyPriMe, they will be your frontliners.
Yes.
Ataraxia's job this game isn't to do a lot of player damage, to be honest with you.
As a Freya?
It's to not die.
Sure.
Just don't die in lane. Every time I type to my ranked teammates, just don't die and we'll win, Ataraxia should be a poster on your wall. Just don't die. And then you'll get to late game, and then you know what? If they're going to focus out Prime, then I have every confidence Ataraxia can do the player damage he needs to do. But until then, that's not his job.
Kiki going to be ulting to the left side. Okay. Defense of the red buff. Obey Alliance kind of showed their face, but that's it.
Xaliea just transformed, and Kiki had just used the dash, so he was in some trouble of getting soloed over there. So he needed to ult out in order to stay safe and not give up a kill in lane to Xaliea, which is really...
Oh, so more of a defensive ult.
Also Kiki's job is to not die in that lane, because he's going to bring so much to these team fights later on in terms of setup and protection that his laning phase is really about staying afloat.
For a long time, I wondered why we didn't see more Athena solo, and now it's kind of, I wouldn't say commonplace, but it's definitely more, it's a standard pick. Or I shouldn't say it's a standard pick, but it's commonplace. And I think Kiki was kind of one of the first players to really bring out the Athena, and then sort of open the eyes to a lot of people. Oh yeah, shield wall, it clears. We can play this pick. And Athena's just ridiculously strong, so you want her no matter what. I love the Athena solo. I think it's a good pick, especially when you've got Inbound across the way on the Fenrir support, who's not as tanky as some of the other selections, and being realistic, he's going to find himself in precarious situations.
Yes.
Kiki can help him.
I agree with you. I like this composition from Luminosity a lot better than their last composition.
Same.
I thought their last composition had very little cohesion to it. It didn't really work as a unit. This composition works far better. You've got Athena taunt into big damage and CC from both Geno and Clout. Those are two great characters to pair alongside Athena. As you mentioned, Inbound's going to be getting his hands dirty. Athena can be there to bail him out. Weaken's on a character that gets you early pressure in a mid lane where you usually would not have early pressure because you're up against a Zeus. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
Geno being aggressed on here has some help from Kiki. The ultimate's good. Weekend trying to tussle over here with Xaliea, but CaptainTwig shows up and doesn't want to take the 1-on-2. Smart decision. Obey Alliance with a small lead here. Really just from the earlier scrum in the 5-on-5 mix-up, and then just farming efficiently. 1,500 at 8 minutes just because they're kind of playing better Smite right now.
They had the first blood as well, which certainly didn't hurt, but you're right. I mean, Obey is definitely looking pretty solid thus far. I will say that so far, Geno needs to be pretty careful about his positioning, and good luck to you because you're up against Ymir, Erlang, Shen as Vulcan, where Twig can just do things like that to you. What's he supposed to do with this spot?
Taunt, rain, we'll see you later. Geno taken care of very systematically. Now the turnaround from LG. Clout joins the party all the way from the back line, and here's the ultimate from the doggo. Clout takes PrettyPriMe up north, and down south, Inbound trying to peel. He's gonna give his life, that's totally fine. It's a 1 for 2, not ideal, but Prime going down is certainly a good look for LG and their fans.
Xaliea might be looking for Kiki as well, but doesn't get that push at the right angle, shoves him up against the wall, and thus can't continue the chase. Another beautiful rotation by Clout, though. Clout
Yeah.
has really stepped up his play at LAN, and that's what you should really expect from him at this point, because Clout, I mentioned it when they played on Monday, Clout has had a long career of playing well at LANs, and this year is no different, man. He's making plays.
And look, if you're going to be as cocky as this dude is, you got to play this well.
Yep.
He is, I think he's the cockiest player here at LAN, but he's got the play to kind of put it up. So I'm going to roast him if he gets smoked, but he's doing his job so far, and I can't really say anything about it. Sure, go ahead and do it. The problem is, there's 4 other players on the team, and it's a squad win. LG needed to find the wins, and Cloud's been doing a good job of trying to do that himself. We watched LG earlier in the week, and Clout was out there soloing Gold Furies, splitting it himself. I mean, you said there was a point where Clout was just like, yeah, I got to win this myself, and he did. And now here against some of the harsher competition, if I'm honest with you guys, Clout needs some help. Clout really needs some help here because I think he's the consistent performer here at LAN. Everybody else seems to be a little bit streaky. Inbound's literally learning on the job. Who's going to be the one to step up and help the carry?
You'd think it'd be Weekend on this Arachne. I think that he's the one who's going to be the guy that needs to step up and help out Clout, because this is kind of, again, most Arachne players, you think, oh, they're going to cheese invade me early, they're going to consistently be on me at level 3, but that's really not what Weekend's done with Arachne so far this year. This is much more norm for Weekend. It takes it a little bit slow in the early game, uses ability to farm, and then get this crusher, maybe another item, and then really start to turn up the gas. And so it doesn't surprise me that Weekend hasn't really been involved with many fights so far. Maybe not bottom of the player damage charts involved, but that's kind of par for the course right now. I think that he can step up and still make a big impact in this game, even though he hasn't through the first 10.5 minutes.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of the key here. Arachne is not looked at as a strong character. Weekend's quite literally the only player that has really made it look anywhere close to good, and it just so happens that he plays it drastically different than everybody else. Look, I'm not a scientist, but there's some correlation there, right?
Probably looking for Ataraxia. Ataraxia doing a good job of staying away from those webs. Weekend's losing this trade, though. Once you get those spiders missed, whew, that's not going to work.
Meanwhile, on the other side, team fight time. PrettyPrime's ultimate. Luminosity Gaming play around Zeus successfully for the first time.
Geno separated from the rest of the team and punished yet again. This, to me, looks like Obey Alliance looking at Luminosity and how they played on Monday and saying, yeah, we can beat that. Yes. Let Geno try and pick Vulcan against us. We're gonna really punish it, and they've done so perfectly.
He's playing it against the Vulcan. PrettyPrime was the original Vulcan. We're sitting here talking about Weekend making Arachne look good. Vulcan was a laughable character, and PrettyPrime almost won a world championship with it. Now, that was years ago, but he's the original Vulcan. Allied will always be the people's Vulcan, but PrettyPrime was the guy that made the impactful plays on the battlefield. And Geno's trying to step to him with it. He knows every trick that you know so far and the ones that you'll learn tomorrow. Obey Alliance, I think they have the upper hand in this simply because Prime knows just how to play against the Vulcan. 0-3-2, perfect example of how they're handling it.
And as I was saying earlier, there's not a lot you can do at times up against Erlang and Ymir and Chulainn, these great dive characters where Vulcan's intermittent mobility and backfire and passive is kind of the only thing he has. But Geno really needs to be saving backfire to use his iframes for that pin, because pin is what will kill you. The knockup will kill you as well, but Twig has to get on top of you in order for that to happen. It's the range damage that'll kill you and the range CC that'll get you killed. So you need to be using backfire to get out of that, and that is the only way that Geno can survive.
That right there was very dangerous for Geno. He should not have been there, and Obey let him kind of get away with it. That was problematic. Kiki making the rotation, frozen from behind by iRaffer, chases out the ultimate from the Zeus player. There's the kill, that's the setup, alley-oop. Geno slams it home off of the assist from the Fenrir support. Great job from Inbound, but will they get bit for it?
Xalia's here and huge, level 14 on this Chulainn. Ataraxia finds Geno. Weekend doesn't get up into the web again. Twig finds his third in a row. And Obey lose their mid laner, but Prime does what all Zeuses just need to do. Some damage. You're dead. You're dead as soon as you get jumped on in that position. Prime just worries about getting his damage off, does enough. Not a lot, but enough to let the rest of Obey come to the rescue.
That's going to set up Obey Alliance for the Gold Fury already with a ridiculous lead, if we're honest. Relatively. 14 minutes is not when you're supposed to be up 4,000 gold. And then getting a Gold Fury on top of it for 4,800. Plus the 5,000 experience here, aggro. Much different story than game number 1. LG are having a problem trying to hang.
The XP difference, if there is any silver lining for Luminosity, it isn't on 2 or 3 characters, and both of those guys are big. It's that all of Obey is about a level up right now. And sometimes those are the fights that you can take because you can end up overwhelming your opponent with numbers.
Right.
Use Kiki as that global pressure and try and get a fight going your way, and then you can kind of claw back in that regard. But that's what needs to happen. Luminosity need to try and use their numbers advantage to find these fights.
I think the problem is that these specific characters, Fenrir support versus the Ymir. Hold that thought for a second. CaptainTwig being aggressed on and inbound. Oops. Can't pick one up. Fenrir support's a character that needs to be ahead, and Ymir is a character that definitely you don't want to be ahead. So your Fenrir port's down. This is just a rough spot for LG.
Oh, Twig survives and Inbound does not. Geno's right behind him. It's a triple kill for Ataraxia. Prime takes away his 4th, and the idea is good. At least if Geno's, that is communication. Either Kiki's not saying, I've got a taunt here, be ready to ult, or Geno is just outright late on the ultimate. But either way, that should have been a clean kill onto Twig. They still get crushed after that. But maybe they don't. Maybe if Geno doesn't get taunted and Twig gets an ultimate off and ends up surviving, his DPS is important here on this Fire Giant. That has just got to be better communication by Kiki, or Geno just has to hit the ultimate faster.
Listen, that is that's a bookmark play for me. That is a bookmark play for me. When I go home and I review the games and stuff, and I look for turning points and bigger picture stuff, that's a bookmark point. Is that where LG loses game? No, but I think that's the reason. That type of communication, it's the fall split postseason. You need to be a better team than that. And that's a scathing review. I get that. But you need to be a better team than that. If your Athena and your Vulcan aren't on the same page, I mean, Geno misses a point-blank ultimate the size of a lane. Both Geno and Kiki have to play better than that. Frankly, Ryan, if that's the way Luminosity are playing this game, they're not good enough to beat Obey Alliance.
No, and then clearly they haven't been so far. And look, that's the risk that you run whenever you make a late season roster change, is that those sorts of things are more prone to happen.
That's the thing though here, is that that's kind of been the silver lining for LG, is that, oh, it's Inbound, he's newer here, and that's kind of the rough edges, but they have 4 other strong players that they can play around and kind of sand off those edges. That's why that was such a big point that I'm harping on, because Inbound didn't mess that one up. That was Geno and Kiki, who have been on the team forever.
But that's not the role that Geno's been playing this whole year. He didn't just move to mid lane at the same point where they pick up Inbound. So
that's fair.
It's not the same as picking up a whole new player, but the difference between support and mid is pretty vast.
It's gigantic. It is.
It's 2 different total styles, so there is a lot of risk involved with making a late season roster change like this and a swap like they've done, and we're showing the negative side right now.
Obey Alliance certainly positive. Tier 2 tower on the left-hand side. Gonna go down. Xaliea has this mode that makes me think of classic solo laners, and it's because he is one. But going all the way back to the days, I bring up Omega a lot, the Maniac towards the end of that era. Xaliea just is bigger than you and shoves you in a locker. His team is 50 feet behind him. He's walking behind towers. He's doing whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And I like to watch it, in all honesty. Just seeing Chulainn stand at somebody's Phoenix when there's still a tier 2 tower up, and Xalia's like, do it. Just do it. Classic.
Not only is he really tanky at this point, he's does a lot of damage. He's got a mystical mail. That's basically 2 mystical mails because he's Chulainn and has one built in half the time. But he's also got a void shield, so he's gonna one-shot Geno. Geno can't be anywhere near Xaliea, and that brings the running total to people Geno can't be anywhere near to 5 on Obey Alliance.
Yeah. Raffer can Raffer can take care of him too.
Raffer has a level up on Geno right now.
That's an astute observation. I did not even see that one. CaptainTwig here, looking for the siege on the right side. All other LG towers are down. And Obey poised, looking for the go. Raffer puts up a wall, separates some of the squad. Twig taunts the back line. Geno uses the beats. Here comes Xaliea now. Big boy knock him onto the mid laner. Clout already gone. PrettyPriMe on the good side of that one. Inbound tries, inbound dies. CaptainTwig puts the doggy back in the kennel. Xaliea on the back line trying to take care of the mage, but the job is done. They're pushing up on the Phoenix. The tier 2 tower already gone. Geno bricks it out of nowhere. And Obey Alliance looking for the right side Phoenix, and they get Kiki instead.
Right side Phoenix will be there as well. Don't worry about that one. It might take a little bit because, again, they don't have that traditional hunter, but they get the Phoenix. This time they don't even try to go for the end. Raffer still's got the dance moves. That doesn't go into the Titan rune for it.
That's classic Raffer. And look, Craig has gotten a lot of nonsense, and I will be the first one to say it's usually deserved for his performance this year. Raffer has not been the player that he historically has been. We began this season, if you're just a postseason watcher, we began this season, Raffer used to be on energy. He's got 2 world championship rings, right? And they trade out with Emilzy. Everybody was wondering who was gonna wind up better. Newsflash, energy was better. Raffer here trying to sort of get his redemption. And on land, he's always been a Lanimal. That's really what he's about. Better on land than he is online. And we're kind of seeing that. Raffer in this series is playing better than I think I've seen him play in multiple splits.
Maybe on LAN, they can put up, do you think on the inside of Obey's team booth, they just have a picture of energy sitting in the other team booth? and that just turns Raffer into like super Raffer? Because he always plays better against energy.
That's very true.
So maybe they just tricked him this time around.
So the booths that we have here, they're 2 soundproof booths, and they're separated by a hallway. But there's a glass, there's see-through glass, you can see the other team. So they just put it above the glass like a fake window.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're like, yeah, we're playing energy. He's like, man, they're really locked in. They aren't even moving. They're
Except
like, yeah,
all 5 players at the computer are Emilzy.
Yeah, exactly.
And the picture that Yaman tweeted, you know that what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know, yeah. That's the solo Emilzy.
Whatever the motivation is, Raffer is feeling it and doing it. This is classic Raffer. His team's nowhere near him. He's just pestering the opposition.
I will say that I'm really glad Raffer just plays EU ranked, because Raffer is the exact type of player that no mid laner wants to play against ever.
I mean, so I am not fortunate enough to play in the top ranked games, but I watch you, I watch some of the other top players stream, and I get the feeling that Raffer in ranked is like playing against Aurora in ranked.
Yes, yeah, very similar. Aurora thankfully has a much different playstyle in ranked than he does in competitive. Aurora will continually run at you no matter the situation, and if you're ahead, then that's usually good for you. But man, when players who play the way that Aurora and Raffer do get ahead of you, there's just no hope. There's just no hope.
That's the thing. An aggressive support with a lead can absolutely carry a game.
Oh yes.
And if you're going to pick characters like Ymir, you've got the shotgun. You're just asking for the shells. And Obey Alliance, they've got an ammunition farm ready to go. Raffer knocked up, doesn't care. Weaken's already dead. He gets soloed in the mid lane. 4-on-4 here on the left-hand side.
Has Weaken ulted this game?
He's tried to, and he's died before he got off the ground.
I don't think he's ever gotten airborne this game with
not
that
Weaken's
ultimate.
game.
That is that's not the way you want it to go.
Not Weaken's game. Not an elimination match, though, for Luminosity. They do have a second shot.
Bye, Inbound.
Nope, Inbound's still alive. Xaliea chasing him, though. Not going to be able to go for it. Inbound goes into the ultimate, trying to bring Xaliea into the fountain. He gets him, but he dashes out anyway. Xaliea, way too tanky. PrettyPriMe gets 2 as Geno gets 1. It's a 3-for-1. The mid lane Phoenix going to fall down as CaptainTwig deals with it. The Titan being aggressed on by the rest of Obey Alliance. It's a 3-for-1, but the game is done. PrettyPriMe gets one just for fun. The man that almost didn't make it to land is gonna win the game for him and his team. PrettyPriMe here, 7-3-9. Obey Alliance, they feed the Swede. They best LG.
Erlang, Shen, and CaptainTwig just dominant all set long. Zeus for PrettyPriMe. Those two picks, man, today just made it look awfully easy up against Luminosity. And LG did have some bright moments that I thought the beginning of game 1 was working for them. They were doing pretty well in those 3-on-3s and 4-on-4s. I think Clout had himself a pretty good set. Kiki's laning phase was good up against Xaliea in both games, but outside of that, man, Obey just breezed to a victory.
Weekend didn't play it well enough. Game number 1 was build was not really working out, not really in the right spot. Game number 2 just didn't have the performance. And as I said, if this team's going to find wins, they need help from their jungler.
That certainly wasn't the game for Weekend, and really it wasn't the game for anybody on Luminosity. Geno just got too far behind early on. The Vulcan pick can do great work when it's left unchecked, but Obey Alliance, I mean, they've seen what that pick does when left unchecked. You mentioned it. Prime is the Vulcan, the premier Vulcan in the league, so they understand that they need to shut it down, and they shut it down very efficiently that time.
Fantastic job from Obey. Don't know any other way to say it. I mean, they executed their plan that they clearly had beforehand. Let PrettyPriMe go ahead and lead the charge. CaptainTwig sets him up. Executed fantastically.
Made it look easy. And now Obey Alliance gets to wait and see what everyone else has got this tournament. They come in. And the best thing for Obey is that they didn't show anything at all. Exactly. I mean, this is the first time they've played being a top seed in Europe. That means they got to wait and see the first 2 days. Now they get to wait and see everyone else. And hey, did you know Twig wants to play Erlang and Prime wants to play Zeus? Like, surprise. The Obey, whatever they have up their sleeve, and I guarantee they have something, is still completely hidden.
Fantastic performance from Obey Alliance. 2-0 above LG. Back to you on the desk.
Another strong performance from Obey, able to grab that set. They'll be moving on, waiting from that Mouse Insignia match for the winner of that later on. But what a strong performance here from Prime. Again, he almost didn't make it and able to look just this good in this game. Talk, I mean, what stood out for you the most in this set?
I think that this is just a testament to what we've known all along. The feed the Swede strategy will always be 100% effective. And I think my favorite part was actually the little bit that Aggro mentioned where Obey genuinely did not have to reveal any sort of secret strategy. As far as everyone else is concerned, all these other teams that wanted to collect maybe a little bit of insight towards some of the spice that Obey might have had up their sleeve, well, they're just going to have to sit and wait.
I mean, they changed one pick in their entire draft. They switched from Nike to Chulainn because it was Arachne, Fenrir, and Athena changed up for LG. And that's the testament to it is when you only got to change one god in your entire draft, and they didn't even have to. They could have gone right back with the Nike, but they felt that the Chulainn was going to do better for their draft there. I mean, Obey Alliance just really handed it to him.
And I'm glad you brought up the Chulainn. What a great game Xaliea was able to have this game. He was such a nuisance. He was doing so much damage whenever he was able to rotate to fights. They couldn't even kill him towards the end of the game. They tried to lock him in the foul with the Ymir wall, and even that wasn't enough. I mean, Xaliea was just a monster. But a strong game overall from Obey, but it really feels like Twig is the one that stood out the most for me just across that set. That's why he's the one selected as your Steel Series MVP. J-Man, talk to me a little bit about what you liked from Twig here just in this set.
Just his heads-up ability with this Erlang Shen, recognizing target selection. That's kind of the biggest thing with Erlang is you got this big pen. If you can hit a couple of people, who are you going to go on? But recognizing and pathing as well on this Erlang, I think that's the big thing.
And also just really felt like Luminosity didn't really have much of a response for how to handle the pressure from this Erlang. They tried a couple of different strategies, but in the end, I honestly felt like Luminosity's drafting was their biggest hindrance in this set. It did not really seem like they knew how to properly adjust for Obey, and I still can't for the life of me understand why they would let Freya and Zeus go through the banning phase yet again. At least strip away one of those gods. You don't need that Baron ban in place. I'm very skeptical that was the direction Obey would have wanted to head towards. And even if he had, it just felt very questionable because there was also things like an Ares ban later on in the compositions, but that would allow Obey to get Ymir again. And if you want Vulcan, how are you expecting your mid laner to ever have a chance at surviving into an Ymir? At least with an Ares, you can blow him up. top, you can't do that. Ymir will just wall you up every single time. He also has to worry about the chain lightnings proccing off of his turrets. It just didn't feel very well coordinated here from Luminosity today.
Things definitely got away from them. Erlang Shen, though, will very often look good if he's given those early starts like we saw happen in both of those games. But I'm sure Obey have got to be feeling good after that game. Let's go ahead and toss it over to them, get an interview after that big win for them.
All right, I'm here with the duo lane for Obey Alliance, Ataraxia and iRaffer. Guys, is that what you expected out of Luminosity?
Yes.
It's kind of what we expected from ourselves in the first game.
Yeah.
Nothing
Raphael
better than
showing
us
him up at the red buff.
dying. Happens so many times in scrims, but it is what it is.
It worked out on the day exactly.
That's
like
it. It
scrims.
works out. That's how it works out.
I was going to say, what's the plan there? That you just stand there and they get scared enough to walk away from the red buff?
Just hope they thought, oh, this guy's a 2-time world champion. I guess I'll just give him the red.
He just hits hard because he's got those world championship rings. His characters just do more damage. It's how it works.
But I take more damage too, because it's a bit vulnerable.
Well, it worked out in the end. You guys go ahead and take the victory. Raffer, question for you. You've had an interesting year coming off of energy and kind of honestly some struggles during the regular season. Here at LAN, you look like classic Raffer. What's that about?
Classic Raffer, what, dying at level 1? You serious?
No, you're playing, yes, dying at level 1, but also playing really strong.
Yeah, it's always harder to come back when you get an early death, and that's how I got 4 swift ones straight after. But I have a strong team, so we just ended up coming back stronger. And as you can see from the second game, I don't know, I just felt a bit more nervous. I felt more confident, but then as I died, I thought, oh, I shouldn't have died this early. So nerves started building up, and then game 2, just hard reset that and just came back stronger.
A lot of the talk about you guys coming into the LAN is PrettyPriMe going to be able to make it? Who was going to step in, all that kind of stuff. Talk to me about your mentality when you thought that Prime wasn't going to be here, and then when you heard that he was going to be able to make it, and what led to this big victory today.
We went through some tryouts with a few mids, and we ended up deciding on Flippo. He's a minor league talent who hasn't had any LAN experience or SPL experience, but his playstyle and attitude towards the game was what we wanted. It was very similar to Prime, and we kind of tried to go for a mix of his god pool between Primes and his own stuff, and went through scrims. And I think other teams in the EU can tell you it wasn't as strong as Prime, but it never was going to be. But it was good enough, We felt confident coming into qualifiers with the assumption that Prime would not make it. But luckily he is here, I think we would have been fine, but it's always better to get the practice, because it's always practice until the World's Finals, right? That's what all this is. So getting Prime here for that is super important to us, and I'm glad he's here.
Last question before we let you guys go. Confident in your next upcoming matches?
Absolutely. It's just in Signum,
We're more confident for this anyway, weren't we?
Yeah, for sure. No, that lads for Pele looked really, really good, so hard to say. We played against both of them a lot, so it's just who's figured out whoever better. But I think we are a stronger LAN team by a mile than either of them, so we should be fine.
Yeah, I'd say we only just had that warm-up game versus LG. I will call it a warm-up game.
Yeah.
They played well, but it's inevitable. It was only going to end with a 2-0.
Classic.
Sorry to disappoint everybody.
Classic Raffer. Glad we can have you back at LAN. You too, Ataraxia. Congrats on the win, and good luck in your next game.
Thank you.
Thank you.